Everyone, welcome to another episode of Talking Mortgages with John Muhammad. I have a good friend and guest on my show today, Mr. Derek Walls from Superior Inspection. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Excellent, man. Well, let's get into it, Derek. I want to know who you are and what you do. Tell the listeners about yourself.
Sure. Again, it's Derek Walls with Superior Real Estate Inspection Services. I am the owner of Superior Inspections. I have a couple of inspectors on my staff. We specialize in residential inspections. However, we do commercial inspections. Been at this for about 17 years.
Wow.
So I got some experience under my belt.
Yes,
so when you're looking for experience and a combination of experience and the utilization of technology, then you've come to the right place. My lead inspector, Carlos, he's out in the field. He's working with one of our newer staff members. We're, as usual, always looking to expand upon our services, expand on our technology, and hey, man, just trying to put the best product we can out there in the industry.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we appreciate what you do. And inspectors play a very important role in this home buying process, right? And you guys can kind of make or break a deal. And so I want you to talk to folks about what you do as an inspector. So just, for the audience, once you go under contract, you generally have an option period in which you have to get, or you have the option to get your home inspected. And Derek does that for a lot of the folks that I work with and a lot of people around DFW. So talk about what an inspection is.
Most definitely. I think, and thanks for raising that question, because that's a point that a lot of people miss. And that one of the things we were talking about, an inspection is visual in nature. Meaning when we look at a room, we're going to see what anyone else with the natural eye will see. However, we do utilize specialized tools when we can't get to certain areas. But one of the things I always like to expand upon is when I say visual in nature, meaning if there are appliances, if there's furnishings or different obstructions within a room, then that does limit the scope of our work, meaning that if there's an issue behind a refrigerator, unfortunately, that wouldn't be covered. However, we do different things to try to combat that. Like if there's an appliance on one side of the wall, we will go on the back side of the wall and utilize specialized technology like moisture meters, infrared cameras, and try to give ourselves the best opportunity to detect a problem that's not seen when we walk into a room. But just to kind of expand on that concept of what an inspection is, it's a part of the due diligence for a home buyer. You go in, you're about to make this large investment of several $100,000, and basically what you're doing is hiring us to come in and test you out at home for you. One of the things that I always like to say too, on behalf of the buyer as well as the sellers and the seller's agent, we do like to preferably have the homeowner not be home and present.
Yeah.
Because of that process. I mean, when done properly, there will be times that home may not be comfortable to be living in at the time, because we're going to turn the heat up extremely high,
Yes.
and we're going to turn the air down extremely low. So that may just create a little uncomfort for the homeowner at the current time. But that's the definition of an inspection. It's a visual inspection and operation of the home systems and components.
Excellent. Well, I've seen you in action. I've seen you some of the things that you do. You guys really go in depth. I think you even check light bulbs and things like that to make sure that the fixtures are working and things
Yes.
of that nature.
Yes.
Talk to me, like, in general, how much is an inspection?
On average, there are a series of specialty services that can be added on, like a termite inspection of the lawn irrigation system, inspection of the swimming pools. When those features get added into play, an inspection can range anywhere from $400 to $600 on average. And that's just taking into consideration about a 2,500 square foot home, lawn irrigation system. And I'll throw in a little nugget too. Generally in North Texas, based on research by Texas A&M, homes 5 years old and older, you want to get a termite inspection. So we probably do that on 90% of our homes that are not new construction.
Okay.
So when you start factoring in those common features, you're averaging around $500.
Yeah, sometimes home buyers want to be as frugal
Frugal.
as possible.
Good word.
But I think that it is important, like you said, you're going to be buying a product, a home that's hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that inspection is very important for you to know what's going on with the house. Tell me a little bit about how do you go over, or do you say to a client, I don't think you should buy this house, or how does that go with an inspector?
That is a sticky situation or a subject matter. But what I will say, the state regulatory agency, which is TREC, Texas Real Estate Commission, they really frown upon us giving our personal opinion. And so we definitely as inspectors have to keep that in mind, to keep our personal opinion, our personal sentiments out of the transaction, and basically give our customers what they're paying for, which is our professional opinion. So with that being said, you will never hear us say or use the term, I wouldn't buy this house. I mean, because of the fact it wouldn't be a fair assessment anyway, because generally we don't know all the ins and outs of the transaction. We don't know how much concessions is being given on behalf of the seller. We don't know what the sale price. We don't know how the sale price stacks up with the range of the neighborhood. So therefore, really, we wouldn't be in a good position to give them a personal opinion to say, buy this house or not buy this house, because we don't know all the parameters behind the scene. But with that being said, just when we're operating within the guidelines of TREC, we are providing our professional opinion, and we do get some customers that are a little more persistent because they want us to really make the decision for us. And that's where we have to really draw the line, because we get into some sticky situations if we start giving that personal opinion. But what I generally try to do is I'll put things in perspective for the potential buyers. When they start asking me, because that's really what they're trying to get at, is do they want to pull the plug or do they want to pull the trigger? And I'll just put it in perspective. I'll say, okay, like, you got hail damage, you got extensive wear on that roof. That roof is going to cost about $8,500 to replace. Let's just say, let's play devil's advocate. If the sellers is not willing to address that, is that within your budget? One thing I'll say is, because of my construction background, I do have a pretty good idea of what replacement costs on a lot of components within the home. So I'm able to give them a number, a budgetary number. And generally, most people, once they see that number, that puts things in perspective for them. Like I said, with the example of the roof, then I tell them, $8,500 to replace that roof. If the sellers don't replace it, I mean, based on what our findings are, it's going to have to be replaced, either now or in the very near future. So then by me giving them that number, then that gives them a better perspective of, okay, is this something within my comfort zone? And then as I go through, just kind of expanding on your question, we do a full visual review with Digital A. We load all of the photos, and as we're talking to them about the findings, we're showing them photos. Okay. It's basically an on-site slideshow. Yeah. On-site slideshow. As they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and we use a lot of pictures. So what we're doing is, as we're explaining what our findings were, we're showing them a photo at the same time.
How many? The report is like 60 or 70 pages, right?
No, not quite that long.
Is it not that big? Yeah.
I do pride ourselves. We do pride ourselves in being very detailed and extensive, but not quite that long. It's probably on average about 40 to 50 pages. And now we may have, it's easy for us to have 50 to 70 photos in a report. But I would say on average probably about 40 to 50 pages. And a lot of that is check disclosures that they require.
So you guys are TREC, is the Texas Real Estate Commission, right?
Yes.
And you're regulated by
that
TREC.
agency.
Yes.
That body.
I get the question a lot, Derek, people who are buying new construction homes, and they're saying,
love that stuff.
Hey, it's brand new. What do I need an inspection for? Give us your opinion.
I love that question, because every opportunity I get to educate the general public on inspection of new homes, I always want to share some knowledge on that. The thing I will say with that is it's man-made. So anything that's man-made is subject to flaws. And trust me, in our inspection of new construction, we definitely find our share of flaws. What you have to keep in mind is home builders are no longer mom and pop shops. Back in the 70s and the 80s, home builders were pretty much family owned, and customer service was paramount. Right now, in today's climate, unfortunately, that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, I'm not going to say all builders are bad builders, but all builders are under the pressure to meet shareholder demand. And with that being said, that the likelihood of quality kind of suffering because of the demand, that's very likely. So with that being said, there are things that a builder or a contractor may do and do it better if he's not under a certain amount of pressure. But because of, again, the demand of the marketplace, the demand of profit margins from the shareholders, those are the influences that push down that quality that we like to see on a day-to-day basis. And if you don't get that home inspected, you don't have no way of protecting yourself as a consumer from those type of influences. Yep. And so with that being said, I definitely highly recommend, not just because I'm an inspector, but I highly recommend getting an inspection on new construction, because you don't know, first of all, when that builder bring in his contractors, I mean, there's always relationships behind the scenes that we have no clue about. A lot of times those relationships get strained. A lot of times they get broken. And that builder may bring in some plumbers or electricians that they've never used before. That's outside of their network. They don't even have any idea really of what their quality of work is. Mm-hmm. They may have found out about them, through some means of communication, but really haven't taken the adequate time to vet that contractor, and that happens a lot. And therefore, you have to realize that that's going to be reflected in the product that you're buying. And the only way that you're going to know is to get that newly constructed home inspected. And the last thing I'll say is, I always just like to use the scenario of, okay, new construction home, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 investment. Would you buy a new car and not test drive it?
Right.
So that, again, I like to try to put things in perspective in a way that people can just really ingest the information. So with that being said, I don't know anyone that will buy a new car and not have it inspected. So in essence, what you're doing is hiring us to test drive that home for you. Mm-hmm. I mean, we go in there, we're operating all the systems, and we're checking them out and making sure that nothing sounds unusual, and of course, making sure that the performance is what you want it to be. And if that's not found out sooner rather than later, the last thing you want to do is end up something changed within your family dynamics. You have to sell that home. Then you turn back around and have to pay for repairs on a newly constructed home that you purchased that you didn't catch those deficiencies in the first place. Right. So that's, those are just some of the reasons why I think it's very imperative to get that.
Listeners, listen, he is giving you some great information. You should have your new construction homes inspected. It's just a part of the process. It costs, as we talk about the home buying process, it is an investment. It is the biggest investment that you will ever make in your life for most people. And it requires you to pay some money to get the things done that need to be done. A question that comes up from first-time home buyers that I hear a lot is like, what is the difference between an inspection and an appraisal?
That's another very, very interesting question. And we get that a lot. As a matter of fact, we get tons of calls of people calling saying, hey, I need to order an appraisal. Well, the first thing is, I would say the interest of the two properties is totally different. When I say interest, I mean, as you know, when an appraisal is ordered, that's generally owned by the lender or the mortgage company. I mean, or they're going to have first dibs on that finished product. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes the consumer doesn't have a say in who provides that service. So that's one distinguishing factor. And then the other one is, again, like I was saying, an inspection is a part of your due diligence. Is what helping you determine, is this the right move for me? Is this the right investment for me? And the only way for you to do that is to get that home inspected, to have everything categorized out as far as repairs, and then give you the opportunity to to prioritize those repairs. So basically, just in a nutshell, the difference is the appraisal deals with the valuation of it or the feasibility of paying a certain amount for the home, and the inspection is purely a report telling you the conditions, letting you know what you're about to get yourself into as far as the investment is concerned.
Yeah, thank you for answering that question. So the way I explain it is like this. The inspection tells you as the buyer about the home, and the appraisal tells us the value of the home, right? You're not giving anyone the value or what that worth is. Now,
well put.
It is so that an appraiser may call attention to noticeable issues with a home and require professional inspections, such as a sloping floor. They may call for a foundation inspection, right? But they don't go in and test the things that you do as an inspector. Tell me about, this is something that I need help understanding, and what the cost is around, what is it called? Hydrostatic
testing, yes.
Testing. What does that do? How much does it cost? Is it worth doing?
I would say it is definitely most definitely an investment that you want to make, and the cost can range. So let's take a step back. What hydrostatic testing is a testing of the plumbing system to detect leaks beneath the slab, and of course leaks that's not visual. So those leaks would be something that's not covered in an inspection, and that's why it's very, very important to have this done. Anytime a home has had previous foundation repairs, that means that foundation, that entire home has been moved, the foundation of that home has been adjusted, and what hydrostatic testing will tell you is what impact has that movement had on the plumbing system? Because one of the worst problems you can have is a subsurface leak. And so what that plumbing test does is they're testing the plumbing by filling it with water and making sure that the water level and pressure is not going to drop. And generally, if it does drop, that's indicative that there's a leak present. And so what you're trying to do as a buyer, a home buyer, is just making sure you don't have that type of defect or deficiency in the home, so that if it does exist, you can get it addressed by the seller prior to closing on a new home. But anytime, and just to kind of answer your question, it can range. I've seen it as low as $300, and I've seen it as high as $700. But generally, in most cases, that should be included in the cost of the foundation repairs. So I always say, whenever you're dealing with a home that's experienced previous foundation repairs, it's very important to know who performed those repairs. Because there's a series of companies that are just known throughout the industry. So, and generally, if you get one of those more reputable companies, they're going to have that incorporated in as a part of their foundation repair, which is a hydrostatic test. And what they generally do, that's done by plumbers. And they generally have plumbers and engineers that either they have on staff or that they subcontract to work out. And then therefore that should be a part of that foundation repair.
Okay.
And any reputable company is going to do that.
So I'll use this as an opportunity again to kind of give people some information as to what happens in this home buying process. The seller is obligated to disclose that they have made repairs.
Yes.
They're obligated to disclose any known issues, right? If the bathroom upstairs was leaking and something fell through the ceiling, they're supposed to tell the buyer in those seller disclosures that these things have happened. Do you guys look at the seller disclosures before you inspect?
We do request them. Oftentimes, in the marketplace that we're in now, we have very short lead times. Like a lot of times we get calls for inspections and it's for the following day. In that case, a lot of times it may not be feasible to get it, but whenever possible, we do always request them and we do look at them. Because it gives us an insight of what we're walking into. Yeah. And so, we definitely do that, and we try to take every piece of information that's available.
So you get that, this is what is changing from a a seller's market to we are now in a buyer's market,
Most
right?
definitely. Most
And so in the seller's market, those inspections, like this option period, the time when you go into contract, you have a certain number of days, typically 3 to 5, right?
Yeah, that's right.
To have the home inspected and to make the decision about whether or not you want to purchase. In the seller's market, they're like 48 hours, 72 hours, and so now what I'm seeing is that buyers are getting more time, and they can take a day or two to figure out what they want to do and have the home inspected and think over those potential asks. Because what people do with the information that you give them, their realtor is going to ask the seller to either make repairs or to give seller concessions,
Yes.
which helps offset the closing costs.
Yes.
Derry, I've been talking a whole lot, my friend. What you got for me?
Well, you know what? I do. I have some very interesting questions, compelling questions. I think that's going to be valuable for the general public. And you touched on one of them. You're talking about the shifting of the marketplace. One of the things I've seen as an inspector and then obviously I'm a consumer. We've had a change in the market from the standpoint of interest rates.
Yes.
So with interest rates, I mean, because what I'm seeing, they're pretty high right now.
Yeah.
I mean, and as a consumer, it's pretty hard to swallow the pill of, seeing 2.5%, 3.5%, historically, and then now we're looking at 5 and 6 and even 7%. So what are some of the things that as a consumer we can do to cushion the blow, so to speak, from the impact of those high interest rates?
Well, I'm going to start from when I got in the mortgage business, 2002. I was selling 7.250, and it was the lowest rates in history at that time in 2002. Now, keep in mind, costs of houses were a lot less than they are right now, right? Yeah. But in today's world, the rates are higher, but you can get a house. Last year and in the first quarter of this year, what was happening is that if you saw a house you liked, in our culture, people say, "Hey, I got to go home and pray on it. Let me think on, let me walk, let me take a couple of days." In the seller's market and the height of what we were in last year and the first quarter of this year, you would go in a house and probably walk out and see 2 or 3 families waiting to go in. Mm-hmm. You had to make an offer almost on that day. You could not ask the seller for anything in terms of concessions or to fix things as they come up in the inspection. And the sellers didn't want your FHA and they didn't want your VA, right? It was conventional or cash. Wow. And that has changed. So the thing that I've been saying is marry the house, date the rate, divorce the landlord. Meaning you get in the house when you can with that whatever interest rate that is out there and available to you, but you get in the house and you anticipate refinancing in the next year or two. Okay. It is now the time to buy. But also, everything that I've seen in the last 2 months is coming with seller concessions. I got a contract of a veteran yesterday buying a new construction home at 545, and she's getting $17,000 in seller contributions from the builder. Wow. We're going to take that money, part of it, and buy her rate down to 4.5. Wow. She's still getting a good rate, right? Awesome. There is something else, because when sellers are having to give contributions, there's things like a 2-1 buy down. So if the starting rate today is, say, 7.5, which realistically may be around 7. So 7% with a 2-1 buy down, the seller gives a credit, and your first year of your mortgage, the rate's 5%, down 2%. In the second year, it goes up to 6%. And in the third year, if you haven't refinanced, it's back to 7. Okay? But you're going to refinance and you have no prepayment penalties and you can refinance within that time frame.
Okay, so you're saying that 2-to-1 product is a good product for entering into today's
Yes,
market?
if the seller, because the seller has to pay for it. So the seller has to
okay.
give a concession to do it, but it makes all the sense in the world. There are some down payment assistance programs out there right now that's 6.875 or even lower.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are some of the qualifications and requirements
A
for that?
first-time home buyer are some of the programs. Some of them require that you have not owned a home in the last 3 years,
Okay.
that you have a credit score above 620, and that your income is in general about under 100,000.
Okay.
If that meets your criteria, there may be a program that helps you. I've got people getting in this current environment getting money back at closing.
Wow.
That
That's
guy got
incredible.
$3,000 back last year.
That's incredible.
Everything I see comes with seller concessions.
Well, okay, with that being said, because I've heard that same sentiment quite a bit within the industry about getting in now and refinancing later. So what would be some of the key factors of what would a seller look for? How will they know when is the right time to refinance?
Well, they're going to know because if you're working with a professional like me, I keep track of, all of my clients, and I will know when it's time for them to refinance, right? And it's when the real time, in my opinion, is when you're saving a couple $100 a month. It may make sense for you to refinance.
Okay.
67% of America gets into a home through FHA. FHA always has mortgage insurance. That mortgage insurance cannot be removed as it can be with conventional. So if you've been in a home for a while and it's appreciating, when you refinance, you may want to go from FHA to conventional, which may remove mortgage insurance. So it's something that we monitor and we try to help clients with, because what I say to my clients is I don't look at you as a transaction today. It's a long-term relationship. I'm a loan advisor. It's more than, I'm not an order taker, right? For me, if I help 10 families a month, I've more than met my goals. So I don't have to, I'm not on the phone, taking the next call. I'm not an order taker, right? I'm going to give you the information. And a lot of people that I help, if they get in through FHA, maybe it's a credit score issue. So we're going to tell you what you need to do to work on your credit with the idea that you'll refinance in a year or two into that conventional loan, which probably is going to save money as well.
Awesome. Good information. So in other words, you're going to follow, that's just a part of your in-house protocols to follow up with your clients after
Yes.
you've serviced them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And so just with that being said, I mean, me knowing you personally, I know how you operate. I know you're in depth, you're detailed, you just goal oriented. So just tell everybody, some of the things about you and your service offerings, and what distinguishes you from your competitor.
That's a great question. I think that, just there are 3 types of lenders that you have. You have bank loan officers, you have mortgage companies, and you have brokers, right?
Okay.
I am a mortgage banker. I work for a company who originates loans, and we even service loans, but we also will sell servicing, right? And that's an advantage to the client, whereas when you're with a bank, as an example, they have things like overlays, if you've ever heard that term. What an overlay is that if FHA says we can do loans at 580 or higher, banks typically will say their minimum is 620, it's 640. At one period, it was 700 for one big bank.
Wanted to know.
And so as a mortgage banker, I don't have to talk or work with tens of families, right? Typically, the way that it works, and for everybody to know, I get paid from the investor. Client pays me nothing. I'm no cost to them. There is nothing that I can do that adds cost. Like I can't charge them more to make more money. It doesn't work. That was fixed in the Dodd-Frank laws of 2012. But again, so I'm able to work with fewer people to make and meet my goals. I talk to people, and I will. If you call me on a Sunday, I'm going to answer the phone.
I definitely know that about you.
Yeah. If you call me in the evening, I'm going to talk to you. I meet people. I love meeting people in person. We're here in my office in Grand Prairie, Texas. I'm an office guy. I'm here every day so people can walk in, deliver documentation to me, meet with me, whatever it takes. So we're available, and that's important. This, as we mentioned earlier, is the biggest purchase of your life. And you need someone that's going to be able to explain things to you, that cares, right? I do my very best to be at people's closings, so I'm there with you. And I have a team of people. I remember that old Verizon commercial. You see the Verizon man, they have all these people behind him. I have people behind me, right? I've got someone who works, 2 people who work directly for me, and they're helping me move my loans through. It's not just on John to get these things done. Some very skilled people who help me get things done. Awesome. And so, that's the difference. And then I mentioned you have mortgage brokers out there. They shop you through different banks, and it's a different process. I know a lot of brokers, they do great work. But it's really what's best for you as a client, to figure out who you want to work with in the biggest purchase that you'll ever make in your life. I believe that guy is me, John Muhammad.
Like I say, I know you. I know how you work and how you operate. And if I was going to deal with anyone in the mortgage industry, you definitely would be my go-to guy. And like I say, man, we want to continue to expand this conversation. Just to give those nuggets of information that you kind of said some things that distinguish yourself from your competitors. Now, let's kind of talk about, some of those people that are first-time home buyers, that they have some hesitations and reservations of thinking or not knowing whether they're prepared to even buy a house. So kind of where should someone even begin, especially from a first-time home buyer's perspective?
You should look at things in 4 ways, and I break it down into pillars, as I call it. It is income. Do you have verifiable income? Right?
Okay.
What I mean is it W-2? Is it taxed? Right? Are you self-employed? Can we verify that you're making money? I talk to people who tell me about these hustles that they got going on, but they haven't claimed taxes, so it has to be verifiable. Second thing is credit. You need to have a 620 credit score. Yes, we can do loans at 580.
That's very good information.
You could do a loan at 580, but what I'm seeing is even at a 620, they're looking at the stability of the buyer. How much money do you have left after closing? So the higher the score that you have, the better the interest rate, the better experience you're going to have in underwriting, and it's important. As you know, most of us talk a whole lot about Credit Karma. We believe Credit Karma is the end all to be all to credit, and it's not. It is absolutely not the end all to be all. If you want to know what your mortgage score is, because you believe it or not, you have a car loan score, you have a mortgage score, you have a credit card score, you have a furniture score. There's 20-something versions of scores. If you want to know what your mortgage score is, the only consumer site out there is myfico.com, myfico.com.
I want to make note of that.
Pay $29.99. You'll know what your score is. That'll give you a good indication. 3, you got to have some money. I mentioned down payment assistance programs. They are out there. They can help you. You can get seller contributions. But when you're buying a home, you have to put up earnest money, that deposit that tells that seller you're serious about buying their home. You got to pay you, right? They have to pay for an inspection. And if that's $400 or $500, they got to have that money. The appraiser, regardless to whether or not the buyer ends up closing on the home, the appraiser goes out and does his or her job, and they have to be paid. So very easily you need $3,000. You got to have it.
Gotcha.
And the 4th pillar is debt ratio. What a debt ratio is, there are 2 that we look at. It's a housing ratio. So that's your potential monthly payment divided into your gross monthly income. And then the second one is all of the debts that you pay, the monthly payment against those debts, along with the housing payment divided into the gross income. That's how we determine debt ratio. And I help people figure out what that is. So if you can afford the home, it makes sense to buy it, because the one thing I can guarantee you is your landlord is not going up next time you renew. It's not going to happen.
Most definitely. So, I mean, you raised some very good, valid points. So let's just say for that consumer that they want to get off the fence and they want to get into the marketplace, but they know that they're not, or in their mind, they feel they're not quite ready. And let's say they do have some credit score challenges. Is that something that within your staff and your personnel in office, do you guys take any professional responsibility in helping them to fix that credit score, or do you
Yes.
kind of have a relationship or?
Man, great question. Great question. So it's never no. Might not be right now, but we give game plans. We don't just turn people down, right? So how do I give a game plan? It is that once I have your 3 credit bureaus, I can do simulations of what it takes to improve your credit.
Wow.
So there's one simulator that'll just evaluate it itself, and it'll say, hey, the buyer needs to do X, Y, and Z. And if they do so, the score goes up by X number of points. So it gives it, just spits it out. Then there's a second way that I can actually manipulate things. I can say, well, if this account is deleted, this would happen. If they get a credit card at $500 a month or whatever that number is, I can simulate it. If they have a cosigner, not a cosigner, but if they've been made an authorized user on a credit card, I can simulate what that's going to do for their score. And then it is called a rapid rescore. What is a rapid rescore? It's when a lender has you pay something off or pay something down, you get a receipt. We send it in to the entities that we pull credit through, and they simply rescore it. Now, it's not free. I'm making it sound easy, but we pay for these things. But we can have it rescored within 5 days. As a consumer, it takes you 45 days before you would probably see the benefit of that. My last option, Derek, is really I don't like sending people to credit repair because it takes a lot of time and often I do have credit repair people that I work with. Okay. But often, some credit repair companies are not going to know what it takes to be removed to get the mortgage score where we need to be.
Wow.
Right?
Very good.
Sometimes a negative may be your oldest trade line and it doesn't need to be removed.
So that is something that's within the parameters of the services you provide.
Yes.
Is to assist with reestablishing and building credit.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
We do all of that. We will give you a game plan. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to hold your hand for the next however many months, but I'm going to give you a game plan. And on my website, applywithjohn.com, I have 8 ways that folks can build credit without necessarily creating more debt.
Wow. That's
so
incredible.
Yes, it's some good information. So
very much so.
Yes.
Very much so.
Derek, we're at the end of the show, and I always ask my guests about, what do you do? Like, when you're not inspecting homes, what does life look like for you? What you into?
Sometimes that's a blurred image. I do find myself working more than I would like to sometimes. But man, I'm a very outdoors type of person, man. I like to hunt. I like to call myself playing golf. I don't do it nearly enough, but I love the game. Love to get out and listen to live music, and just hang out with friends, man. I'm from the South, so I'm kind of friend and family oriented, man. Okay. So anything that gives me an opportunity to be around that kind of crowd, that kind of what gets me going.
Good. I've seen you in your Jeep. So you take the top off, remove everything, get out there and
Oh yeah, man. Not like letting your hair blow in the wind.
Yeah.
When you got it.
When you got it, right. Right. Well, I'm gonna get out there and do some hunting, which I really am gonna take you up on that.
I'd love to.
I love talking. I like dining. That's one of the things that I like to do. Give me what's your go-to spot in DFW?
Man, like I say, I'm Southern guy, I'm pretty simple when it comes to food. I mean, it's no such thing really as bad food as I'm concerned. I like the simpler things in life. I'm a big Cheesecake Factory if I'm just going to kind of do something real quick and simple. I love Cajun food, so I'll hit Razoo's up. But if I want to get into a little bit some more finer, I'm kind of a big Trulux fan. I love seafood. And like I say, Cajun food. So if I want to step it up a little bit, I'll hit a spot like Trulux. But you'll oftentimes find me a place like Bar Louie, kind of relaxed environment.
Yeah.
Good little finger food. So good to socialize over. So that's kind of my kind of thing.
Yeah. There's one thing for sure about Dallas-Fort Worth. You will never be short on places to eat.
Most definitely. I
in
totally
the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Totally agree.
Derek, thank you for being on the show today, man. Appreciate you. I'd like you to close it out because it is the inspector or the inspection company is really like the one or two things that a client has the ability to choose, right? They cannot choose the appraiser. But how do they reach you?
Sure. I mean, you can always reach us directly. Our phone number, office number is 817-689-8433. Again, that's 817-689-8433. Or you can 24/7 order inspections online. That's www.superiordfwinspections.com. So we get quite a few of our orders come through online, and so you can reach us through that number or online through that website.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Hey, man, it's always a pleasure, and look forward to hanging out with you again.
Thank you. See you next episode, guys.